Hello, welcome to Why Wait Till Sunday. It is Tuesday. You may be watching this later today or Wednesday, but either way, we are excited that you're here, and we're excited that Derek Bosworth, otherwise known as the FF Boz, otherwise known as Dynasty_God on Twitter, has joining me today to talk about some incoming wide receivers, and he's even got some tight ends for us. So welcome to the show, Boz. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm a big fan of the Why Wait Till Sunday podcast, and I'm an avid listener, so it means a lot to be coming on.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's good to hear. Thank you so much. It's hard to find people, even in the, certainly in the devy space, but even in the C2C space, that already have some thoughts formed on these incoming freshmen, because we just got done with the season, and we're already trying to see. Some people are having C2C starts. So right now we have a mock going on right now on Twitter, hashtag Heavy Hitters Mock, which has been a pretty fun exercise. We've got like Ray GQ in there and a bunch of other guys for C2C mock, trying to generate some ADP so we can get a feel for that. And so other startups are going to be going on between now and April. So it's good to know these incoming freshmen. They're going to be in the pool to be drafted. So when we talk about these guys, I mean, they're all good because we're going to basically, limit it to the top 5 247 composite wide receivers. And then I think we both have maybe some grab bag guys that are lower ranked that we think can pop early. But basically want to put these in the context of where would you maybe think about drafting them? Where does the talent fall off in the guys who are already in college that you would take a stab at an incoming freshman, right? Actually, some guy tweeted at me during this draft and said, are you nervous about picking up a guy who's never played in college yet over someone you've seen? And what do you think about that? I mean, I had my answer, but how do you feel about that, Boz? Where do you put a guy you haven't seen before in the big pool?
Yeah, so obviously it's gonna obviously give some nerves taking a guy that we haven't seen in college. But either way, I think as the years progress, their value is going to go up. Like Bryce Young, for example, we haven't seen him really all that much, and he's already a first-round startup guy, as opposed to he was about a third-rounder last year. So his value is going up either way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Devy Kane has mentioned this to me before, actually kind of taught me over a year ago when I asked him a similar question. And he said, you're looking at these guys like basically stocks. I mean, you want to have them in your portfolio. You want to have these guys when they pop, and nobody increases in value, I don't think, as much as certainly an incoming freshman, maybe a freshman, who pops as their second year. But any incoming freshman that flashes is immediately going to rise. You said, great example, Bryce Young. I mean, Bijan Robinson is now like the 101, or at least the number one non-quarterback. In Superflex, quarterbacks obviously are going to get bumped up. But like without a doubt, I mean, he's like the guy you want. And last year, I bet you could have had him second, third rounds even. Because he went to a crowded backfield and the Count Ingram, people liked him and all that. But, then once they flash it, especially as a freshman, boom. I mean, you're talking like 2, 3, 4, 5 round jump immediately. So I think you're right. These are important guys, even though we haven't seen them in college yet. And it's important to kind of, hedge your bets. When are you going to take a stab? And certainly the top guys we're going to be excited about and worth drafting. I mean, probably in the top 5 rounds or so of a C2C startup, maybe even sooner than that. So without further ado, let's see. What I wanted to say was, a couple other things to start off. We are both in the program C2C League, which has been totally awesome. I think you actually might have been the particular guy who reached out to me to invite me last year, and that's been super fun. You're kind of in charge. Are you like part of the circle of trust?
Yeah, so I'd say it's me, Carl, and Matt Bruning right now that are putting most of the rules in there. But Carl's the engine of the train.
Okay.
So that started. I just had a random tweet, and I was thinking like, so Campus to Canton leagues. Sometimes I have a problem with the fact that I don't know what I should be trying to do, whether I should be trying to win the college side or the NFL side. So I just tweeted out, I was like, what if there was a team that you could earn scouting points from the college side, but win money from the NFL side, so that it makes the ultimate goal to get a freshman that is an NFL star. Yeah. So I just made that tweet, and I was thinking, like, I really want to start a league like this. And then Garrett Price, Mr. Dynasty Nerd, he like talked to me about it, and he implemented so many rules, and I was like, wow, this is going to be a crazy league. And Matt Bruning added his input, and then it was originally me and Garrett were the commissioners for each side, because we do need 2 leagues. There's a lot of blind bidding involved and a lot of manual work.
Yeah.
And then Carl took over, and he's keeping that engine running, and he's making it even better.
Yeah, it is super fun. I mean, you'll see me sometimes tweet. I like to tweet the program and then use the emoji TM because I want us to trademark it, because it's such a cool concept. But yeah, I love the recruiting. It's super fun. I mean, it's complicated and it requires a little extra work, but I love the week-to-week points. And this year, I think I'm going to be even more equipped to know those guys that I'm going to want to really shoot for. And if you're in this world, you can never get enough. I mean, you can never go deeper. You can never go too deep or know too many guys. So it's really fun, and it really gives you the control in the recruiting versus a draft or something like that with incoming freshmen. So it's very innovative, one of the most complicated but also really coolest leagues. So, and maybe if it gains in any kind of popularity, we'll have offshoots and people can join and set up their own version or something like that. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for inviting me. That's been really fun. Are you in League 1 or 2? I'm 1.
I'm in League 1. And
okay, so we compete against each other. What team are you? I forget.
I'm Tulane.
Oh, the Green Wave. Very nice.
My NFL team was last this year, but I get Trey Lance. So it's not.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. Oh yeah, you're gonna get Trey Lance. That's right, because he was actually not available in the startup because he was D2 or FCS. And then so that's been super fun. I actually got to the championship game against the aforementioned Garrett Price. There was a little controversy. We had a legitimate tie to the 100th place of there were 2 decimal points, and we still tied exactly. There's a whole thing with Juju Smith-Schuster. We don't have to get into all that. I still think I should have had a shot, but whatever. We had an interesting finish to the championship side. But you also have started a new podcast, which is really why I was like, oh, I got to get this guy on the show, because you do a podcast specifically for incoming freshmen called the Up Next. How's that going? Are you having fun looking deep into the incoming guys?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Like you said, there's not a lot of content on these freshmen. And like I noticed that, and I was looking for it. I noticed that there wasn't a lot. So I was like, maybe I'll try to produce some.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you're listening to Why Wait Till Sunday, if you want to listen to this podcast, you definitely want to listen to Up Next. So definitely go check that out. He specializes in the incoming freshmen. And, that's why we have him on the show today, because that's what we're going to be looking at. One more thing before we get into the names. I know everyone's chomping at the bit for the rankings. Everyone loves a good ranking. But, Derek, when you are looking at these guys on tape, right? So we have no real metrics in high school. I mean, everybody has ridiculous stats. So we can't, I feel like we can't really use stats. And I'm usually a numbers guy, learning to be more of a film guy, because the deeper you go, you have only film. You can't really trust the numbers when you get outside of college. What do you look for? I mean, I found the big, tall guys are super exciting because they just bully people around, but is that going to work at the next level? And then the smaller, faster guys, you're like, do they have true speed where they can beat, a linebacker who weighs 250 and runs a 4.4, across the middle or whatever. And they can obviously do that in high school. So it's very clear these guys are physically advanced. You watch the tape, most of them look like monsters, even against their competition. So I know we're looking for traits, but what do you look for that says, I think this translates? Because sometimes I feel like it's hard. You watch these guys, everyone looks pretty good.
Yeah, they all do look really good, especially because we're really only watching highlights. But I look for traits. Fluidity is a big one for me for wide receiver. Separation off the line is a big one. And athleticism, that's what you got to look for the upside. And also I do like to see my wide receivers returning kicks and making plays after the catch.
Okay. Yeah. Returning punts is very, very nice. I think it just shows a lot of vision and ability to, kind of break tackles, hit some angles there. Yeah, I agree with you. I try to do that. I found that a lot of times it's actually hard to see getting off the line because they're not, really facing too much press anyway. I mean, so many times these guys have 10 yards to do whatever they want before they come in contact with anybody. But yeah, I think that first step is a big one for me, regardless of if they're on man-to-man or if it looks like more of a zone or there's a big cushion. But still, what does that first step look like? Are they like slowly getting off the line? Or are they, some guys, honestly, I can tell if I'm interested in watching their film within the first 2 plays, because some guys you watch them and everyone looks kind of the same. And then you watch one guy and you're like, oh, that's quick. Like, oh, he got that first step was faster than the other 5 guys I just watched. And so those are the ones I'm like, I want to watch the whole tape because he's showing me something, that just looks a little different. So I think you need to watch a lot as well and a lot of different guys, because then you can tell when guys look different. And that to me is a little bit of subjective, obviously, but some guys they look different. And I think that is when the ones you want to circle on your list. So we've got the top 5 per 247 composite. I'm not saying these are my top 5, but I think for the general listeners who go to Rivals or 247, these are the ones they want to know our opinion on, at least at first, and we'll have some grab bag guys later. But obviously, number 1 on 247, 5-star, Emeka Egbuka. He's going to Ohio State. His comp on 247 is Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't think I have a huge problem with that comp, to be honest with you, to the extent that you can really comp an NFL star to a high school player. But I'll give the floor to you first. What do you see with him? What do you like with him? What do you don't like? And then I'll chip in after.
Yeah, so he's my number 2 guy in the class, despite having to sit a year before he'll become like a real producer. I think of any wide receiver in this class, his skill set is the most complete. He's a better technician than most of them. As a junior, he was well over 100 yards per game and well over 2 touchdowns per game. His competition wasn't great, but I was impressed that he kept 22 yards per reception with the amount of times he was touching the ball, because he was their whole offense. Mm-hmm. And he's really fluid. He has great body control, and there's nothing I can really knock this kid for except for the fact that he's going to Ohio State and he might have to sit a year.
Yeah, I mean, he'll definitely have to sit a year. I think in C2C, someone actually asked me, and we'll talk about the guy I took as the first wide receiver in this class in that mock. And someone said, why not Egbuka? And I said the exact same thing you did. I mean, if it's a coin flip, I'm going to take the guy who might pop sooner. But otherwise, I mean, his skill set, I actually echo pretty much everything you said. That's what I saw too. Suddenness after the catch, yak ability, it seems. His body is big enough and strong enough that I think he can definitely produce after the catch. I wouldn't say I seem to see like true long speed, like blazing long speed, like a 4.3 type. But I don't care about 4.3. I'm just saying for the listener, I don't know if I see that full-blown long speed, but honestly, you don't have to have that to be even a fantasy wide receiver 1 in the NFL. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins doesn't have that. Devontae Adams doesn't have that. So I want guys who are going to compile 10 catches a game for 150 yards and a touchdown over, the Marquise Goodwin types that, wow you with speed, but don't have the volume. So I think Egbuka is definitely in that mold where he can catch 10 catches a game, like just get fed as a high volume, short to intermediate guy with yak potential for sure. So I think that's true. Everything you said, I think he's my 2 as well, actually. And part of the reason he gets bumped down a touch is the waiting period. I mean, there's just no way if he cracks the top 3 at Ohio State next year, I mean, just rocket ship emoji, because that's super impressive. I mean, Julian Fleming and Jackson Smith and Jigba couldn't even do that this past year. So if he comes in and is even their 3rd leading receiver, jackpot. I mean, that's just super impressive. So we'll get to see that. He may have to wait a year or even 2 potentially, but I don't know why do these kids keep signing with Ohio State? I mean, they have like 4 of the top 15 this year. They obviously had 3 of the top 10 last year. So it's ridiculous. All right. That's Egbuka. I think he's a very high floor, if nothing else, but obviously I think the ceiling's there too for him. Jacorey Brooks listed number 2. He's also a 5-star and headed to the basically at this point, wide receiver U, Alabama. I mean, who would have ever said that? They were running back U, now they're wide receiver U, they're everything U. What do you think about Brooks?
Oh, I love Jacorey Brooks. He's my top guy in the class, and I think the fact that he's 6'3", 185, and he returns kicks for the best high school football team in the country, that just says it all. He has the build and physicality of a dominant alpha receiver, and his release just leaves defenders in the dust. His big knock is that he ran a 4.8 340, which is definitely very disappointing. However, his track runs in high school show just how speedy he is. His 200-meter time was faster than JoJo Earls, who's the speedster of this class. Jacorey's just dominant on 50-50 balls, his play strength, his hand strength, and he's freakishly athletic. He's going to be a beast at the next level, and Alabama historically sends a boatload of wide receivers to the league every single year, and their wide receiver room is not as packed as it usually is. So I think this 2021 freshman class for them is the future of that Bama wide receiver room, and they could potentially have 3 first-rounders just from this recruiting class.
I mean, they're gonna have like maybe 2 first-rounders. They had 2 first-rounders last year. It's like it's just dumb. I mean, I don't even. But I will agree with you. Despite comparing to the Ohio State class or wide receiver room, I mean, I think Bama finally has graduated that foursome that is basically just logged up all the targets for the last couple of years. And I mean, I'm not a super high on Mechie myself. So if you say he's like maybe a whatever, maybe consistent wide receiver 2 for them, there's an opening for a wide receiver 1. There's an opening for someone to come in and pop. And if that happens as a freshman, you're talking about a first round devy C2C pick next year. So I think it's worth saying that you want to basically collect all these guys if you can, like now, because we were talking about freshmen that just go crazy value. If an Alabama freshman receiver leads the team in receiving this year, which I don't think is out of the question, I mean, first round, like top 5. I mean, after Bijan Robinson and some running backs, I mean, it's like it would be insane, the value jump. I currently took Brooks as the wide receiver 1 in 2024 class in this mock that we're doing at 403. So 4th round pick, and I don't know if he would have lasted to the 5th, but that's what you're looking at right now. And I agree with everything you said. He, to me, actually looked maybe a little more thin than Egbuka on the field. Not quite. I mean, Egbuka really looks thick. And he looks a little faster though to me. Despite the 4.8 40, which I honestly don't. If a guy runs a fast 40, okay, but if they run a slow 40, I don't really worry about it. We've seen guys who had 4.6, 4.7, 4.8 in high school, and by the time they get to the combine, it's a 4.4. So I think technique's a big part of that, and you can lose 0.2 of a second on your start, and that has nothing to do with your actual game speed. So I think he looked very fast. I agree with pretty much everything you said. He's also my number 1. So I don't know. We'll have to differentiate ourselves sometime. But yeah, 6'3", 185. If he can get to 6'3", 210 by the time he comes out, I mean, that's just beautiful. It's Alabama. I mean, it's just got everything you want. I mean, Bryce Young's going to be throwing to him for the next 2 years. I love Bryce Young. It's just wheels up for Jacorey Brooks. I think he's very, very exciting. And I think people seem to really love Earl. We'll touch on him in a minute. But Earl is like a slot dude, probably. Brooks is the potential, like you said, to be that alpha, to be that X wide receiver on the outside, and probably be versatile enough to run the slot as well, which I like versatility. But if anybody has that true ceiling, it's Brooks. It's not Earl, in my opinion. So I really like Jacorey Brooks. Troy Franklin is currently listed as the 3rd in the 247 receivers for their composite. And he's a 4-star, so it's a little bit of a tier drop down from 5 to 4. Going to Oregon, and what do you think? What do you think?
So I have JoJo Early in my big 3, but outside of the big 3, I think that Troy Franklin is the leader of that second tier guys. He does not have a recorded 40 time, but when you watch the tape, you can see that if he had run one, he would have had a blazing time. I would say he runs mid 4.3s. He can burn defenders just by his speed alone, but I loved what I saw out of his feet. His footwork makes him a great route runner and an elite separator, or at least gives him the potential to be a great route runner. His big knock would be his size. He's 6'2", 170, which a lot of people are going to look away from right away. He'll definitely need to add muscle to play at the next level, and I also would have liked to see more physicality out of him. His strength is not yet at the collegiate standard, but with those quick feet and that speed, his upside is limitless. At Oregon, he should get on the field early and be the Ducks' deep threat. And I think the transfer of Tyler Shaw really helps him because Butterfield and Ty Thompson, they're both going to look deep. They have cannons for arms, and they should get Troy Franklin the ball a lot more than Tyler Shaw would have.
That's a good point. It's really, you need to take a holistic view, look at the whole team context. I appreciate that little nugget there. I saw, basically what you saw. I wasn't super impressed, but you seemed like you were more detailed in looking at his feet and what that might mean for him. He seemed like kind of a thin speedster to me, which is what he is, 6'2", 170, but he could certainly put on some pounds. I mean, Devonta Smith is almost 6'1", 170 right now, as a senior. So, he can certainly put on some pounds there, and it's not a huge concern as a true freshman at that weight. But, I didn't notice the feet as much as you. That's more encouraging. His comp on 247 is Marquise Lee, who we all know was a good route runner, I think, but more of a slot type, I think, in the NFL, and maybe even at Oklahoma. He was at Oklahoma, right? I think he was. No, USC.
Yeah.
So, that's not an exciting comp, but I think if you look at the traits that Lee had, which was route running, he certainly had at least one dominant year at USC. And so he's a good player. It just didn't really work out for him at the next level. But he definitely had his people that always thought this was the year for him, even in the NFL, and never came to happen. But I think that's an interesting he's an interesting player. I mean, if he can get to 6'2", 190 and still have that burner speed, maybe, his ceiling's like a DJ Shark type, like that deep threat. Probably not a true like target hog alpha, but certainly could be a very exciting player. And good point about the quarterback change at Oregon. So for your C2C leagues, maybe a deep threat right away and can contribute. So that's nice.
Yeah, I see a lot of Will Fuller in his game. That's what
a taller Will Fuller. That's interesting. That's very interesting. I'm a big Will Fuller guy. It took me a while to get on the train with him, but now I'm just like love Will Fuller, and was really bummed last year because he was on like 75% of my teams, and then he had the suspension. But all right, next is number 4, Mario Williams, headed to Oklahoma. I was pretty impressed. To me, when you flip on the tape for him, he's one of those guys that looks different almost immediately. What do you think about Mario Williams?
Yeah, he's just a true slot receiver that's going to benefit from his situation, and he is quick, super quick. He's 5'11", 178, and he's got good long speed. He's someone you can count on every play to separate from his defender. He's a guy that's going to develop into a great route runner. He can make plays with the ball in his hands. I love the yak ability of this kid. He's not going to win jump balls for you, and he's on the shorter side. But I think Oklahoma is a great fit for a receiver just like that because Mims and Jaden Hazelwood are going to be their outside receivers. And both of them, they can work the intermediate to deep game, and they can just body defenders. So Rattler's going to get himself a guy that can separate on those short routes and cover ground quickly after the catch.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely looked immediately faster than anyone I had really even watched, and that includes Brooks and Egbuka. Just lightning in a bottle. I mean, every single play, just like so quick. And honestly, I really like the comp 247 gives him, which is Eli Moore, another one of guys I really like. But Moore has that next level just quickness. When he touches the ball, it's just like electric immediately. And I felt like that's what I saw with Mario Williams as well. So, if he's a little bit bigger Elijah Moore, that's exciting because he is listed at least, kind of taller, not heavier, but taller. So mean, if you get to 5'11", push 200 and maintain that quickness, I mean, that's really exciting. So he's a guy I really like. At Oklahoma, like you said, I mean, maybe he mans the slot immediately, which would be pretty impressive. I love Mims. I'm still a Hazelwood believer. His high school tape was so exciting to me. Fluid and big and just smooth athlete. This is an aside, but I think it's still worth talking about. Quickly, are you still hopeful for Hazelwood? Sounds like you are.
Definitely. I draft him everywhere right now. I think he's
free.
He's going in like not to like the 6th round, and I'd be willing to spend a 4th round startup pick on him.
Okay. I'm with you there. I mean, his high school tape was just so beautiful. I mean, he's just a gazelle out there, a really fluid athlete to me. And all it takes is 1 year in that Oklahoma offense, and your stack can go way up. So, okay, we like Jaden Hazelwood. It's a little bonus for y'all. And then finally, Agiye Hall. So this is basically the third Bama receiver in the top 5. That's just silly. What do you think about Hall? His comp on 247 is I think it's Brashad Perryman. Brashad Perryman. So potentially a deep threat type. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's an upside pick in devy leagues. He's a massive dude at 6'3", 190, and he's fluid for his size. He has no business moving like that. Hall plays strong when the ball is in the air and with the ball in his hands. He looks like a power back when DBs try to tackle him. 50-50 balls are more like 90-10 balls when they're in Hall's direction. His hands are very strong, and he's very good at aiming his routes toward the holes in the defense, which I look for out of tight ends. But a receiver this size, he's basically a tight end. I have a few knocks on him. It's just his track speed is very underwhelming. His best 100-meter time was an 11:18, which approximates to about a 4.68 40 time. And he's ran a lot of 100-meter. He doesn't only have 100-meter time. He's also not a twitchy athlete, which I think is going to affect his route running development. But like I said, Alabama could have 3 first-round wide receivers from this class. Hall has incredible upside, and if he can become a great technical route runner, he's going to just be phenomenal at Bama, and I think he has first-round potential.
Yeah, I mean, and the coaching, I mean, anybody who's going to do it, it's going to be the Bama coaching staff. So to teach him those things, I feel like maybe better than Brashad Perryman is maybe a Mike Williams type, especially when you're talking about these 90-10 balls. I mean, just winning these downfield balls with a 6'3" frame. And he's fast enough to get deep, but maybe not that. I mean, Brashad Perryman had track speed, like 4.3 type stuff. So maybe more of a Mike Williams is who you should have in mind with Agiye Hall. And so that's the top 5. Pretty crazy. I mean, Bama, and the interesting thing is, Bama last year, their number 1 receiver recruit was Theo Jones-Bell, I believe, who was kind of buried not even top 20, I think, on 247. So this year they said, all right, screw it. We're going to just revamp the entire receiving room. Then went out and got 4 of the top 10 or something on 247, which brings us to the next guy, JoJo Earl, who you mentioned. He's also on my list. I mean, I think we have to talk about him. He's, since he signed with Bama, he's just, he's rocket ship, whatever. In fact, I put out a poll yesterday that said, for the Campus to Canton account, I said, who is the Bama receiver most likely to pop as a freshman? Because now we've got these guys moving on. And is it going to be Brooks, Hall, Earl? Is it Early? You said Early. I thought I was Earl.
I really have no idea.
JoJo, we'll call him JoJo. Or there's another one, Christian Leary, I think, who's like a speedster dude. And Brooks tied with JoJo. So that means that people think JoJo Earl is like coming to come in and be the best freshman receiver. So I figured we had to talk about him. What do you see? You mentioned before that he's the speedster of the class, in your opinion?
Yeah, he's my wide receiver 3, and he's in my tier 1 of guys.
Wow.
Just as a junior, he played in 15 games and he totaled 2,000 scrimmage yards and 26 touchdowns, and he caught 84 balls in his junior season alone. So this guy is going to be a reception magnet. He's an electric player. He reminds me almost of Rondale Moore, and that's some high praise from
That's
me
saying
because
something. Yeah.
I love Rondale Moore. Yeah, I think year one he does have potential to be the best wide receiver at Alabama, because I think that they're going to want a guy, just a playmaker on the field, because at wide receiver right now, they don't really have one.
Right. I mean, I'm not a huge Mechie fan. I think he's already shown us what he is. I'm not sure I see like a next level for him. And then, I mean, the guys from last year didn't even get on the field. Now, that doesn't mean they can't pop in year two potentially, but they didn't even get on the field. I mean, Dow Jones-Bell had 1 catch or 2 catches. Javon Baker had 2 catches. I mean, they didn't even see the field at all. So, I think it remains to be seen if they're going to be, even be at Alabama the whole career or whatever. And there's room for these guys to come in, like you said, and just and do something right away, and their stock will just go crazy. So I would have no problem saying if you're in a C2C, just get them all. I mean, you can get them all like 4th, 5th, 6th round, or 5th, 6th, 7th round, whatever. If you want to wait on receiver, just do running backs and quarterbacks, and then in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, take each one of these Bama receivers, and I don't think you're going to be upset with that.
Yeah, one of them's bound to become a first-round startup guy. One of them.
I mean, yes, like that's for sure going to happen. And if you having them all doesn't hurt. I mean, if you had years ago Ruggs, Smith, and I don't know, one of the other 3 of those 4, you'll be sitting pretty now anyway. So it doesn't hurt to just stock the whole room at this point. All right, another guy who's a little bit further down the list. I'm on him. I know Devy Dietz is on him. Austin is Destin Hill. And the reason I wanted to look at his film is because he's going to FSU and talk about a wide open depth chart. I mean, literally anybody with any sort of talent can play for them right now. But I really liked what I saw. Have you looked at him much, Destin Hill?
I've looked at him a bit. Not as much as most guys, but he's an athlete, and I think he can develop into a great route runner.
Right. Yes, that's what I think too. And he's one of those guys for me immediately. You watch all these guys and doing all these different things, and then you put on Destin Hill. And the thing that we talked about in the very beginning of the show, that first step is pretty nice with him. That first step, he has some wiggle at the line. I think, like you said, good route runner potential at the next level. It looks just to me, one of the, actually, and the guys I've looked at so far, one of the most tactical receivers, already has some of those nuances. I think some of those little moves, some of those get off the line type strategies that these other guys don't really need because they're so athletic. But I really liked what I saw with him. Just looked more of a polished receiver, one of the more polished receivers actually that I've looked at from the high school guys. And he's headed to FSU. I think there's a good chance of early production with him. I think Austin actually just took him in that mock. I mean, like 6th round or something like that. I mean, that's probably pretty generous, but if you like him, go get your guy. I'm a big fan of that mentality. So, and again, like we keep beating that drum, but if he comes to FSU and gets 20%, breaks out as a true freshman, he's going to be, boom, all of a sudden a top 5 receiver in this class, just because when you pop early and your people are all over it. So, and his 247 comp is Tyron Johnson, who I think is like a Oklahoma State like bench warmer. So I thought it was a weird comp. If you wanted to think ceiling, I feel like his build and what I saw from kind of a route running stuff is a little like a Chris Godwin. I mean, I think that's a huge shoes to fill. But I think if you want to talk about eventual ceiling, if everything comes together, the body size, the route running, the technician, probably not 4.3 speed, but 4.5, which is totally fine. I think that could be the type of receiver you're looking at. I'm not saying he's the next Chris Godwin, but I think that's the mold of the style you might be hoping for with him at his 100th percentile outcome. All right, next would be, most people know about this guy, Brian Thomas Jr., headed to LSU. He's a big dude. I think he's like 6'3" or 6'4", pushing 200 pounds. Let me get you the exact number. Yeah, 6'4", 190, and headed to LSU, where, again, there's going to be an opening now for some targets right away.
Yeah, his I forget what the exact number is, but he ran an incredible 40 time. And at that size, he is just an absolute athlete. I do think that year one, LSU is going to use Deion Smith more than him. He's another recruit that they
Yeah,
got.
another 4-star. Yeah.
I feel like Deion Smith is more grown into his body and more of a physical receiver. And I think Brian Thomas might need a year to put on some weight, maybe, and just get more fluid within his body. It seems like he needs to grow into himself.
Yeah, he definitely looked a little bit like that giraffe running around out there. I mean, just so tall and lanky and long. Um, I did think he looked pretty fluid though. Sometimes, or at least maybe not fluid as much as quick and fast, like you said. I mean, he has an amazing 40 time. Sometimes you get these guys and you get all excited when you see the 247 and they're like 6'3", 4, 5, and pushing 200 pounds. You get all excited and you flip on the tape and they're just like boxing people. They're just power forwards out there. I mean, they don't see, they're not sudden. They don't look very fast. They're just like bodying up these 5'3" defenders at the cornerback position. So he did look like he has the requisite athletic ability, I think, if he ties it all together. And like you said, maybe he gets a little more coordinated and a little more tight with his movements. And I think there's a real high ceiling with Brian Thomas if it all comes together, because he's got those tools and he's got that size, which, the cliche, you can't teach size. Jump ball type guy at worst early on, and then, could develop into a true alpha on the outside, I think. So he's pretty interesting. And again, I mean, he's going to be 10th plus round pick in your C2C. So probably not even a devy guy unless it's an incredibly deep devy list. But in C2C, again, a value, I think. And at this point, LSU receivers are a jackpot pretty much. All right, one other guy here that I feel like, I haven't heard anyone talk about him. I was just going down the list in 247 and clicking every single highlight tape I could find. J. Michael Sturdivant, I don't know, whatever, going to Cal. So he's kind of one of the highest guys going to Cal, I think. I was pretty impressed with this dude. He's 6'3", another one of these big, tall guys that you get excited about just on the paper, stats of his size. 6'3", 185. I thought he looked, again, one of these really tall guys that surprised me with their fluidity. At that age, at that size, and then, looked fast, and then was also a jump ball maniac. I mean, just, we say maybe contested catches, especially in high school, like, I don't want you contested catches because it means you didn't separate from anybody. But like even short yard, coming from the 10-yard line, how much are you going to separate? But then just chuck it up. I mean, just two-handed giant, like way over everyone's head type catches. Do you have an opinion on him? I know we're getting deeper, so you maybe haven't seen all the tape, and I understand that.
I actually love J. Michael Sturdivant. I've been talking him up on Up Next. He's the perfect red zone wide receiver. 6'4", 185, but he plays strong. And when the ball is in the air, it's his. His body control is amazing. His hands are amazing. And I don't know who's going to be throwing him the ball at Cal, but whoever it is just has to throw it in his general direction.
Yeah, I'm not sure it matters who's throwing the ball. I mean, whoever was at his high school team, you literally just chuck it. Just chuck it up. Like, you're talking, I'm not saying he's as complete a receiver as Calvin Johnson, but I'm talking like two guys draped on him. Doesn't matter. Just chuck it up to him. He catches that ball. Super strong hands, like you said. I must have missed that Up Next episode. My apologies. You have been talking about him, it sounds like. I thought I was the only one. I came across that name and I looked at the film and was like, why have nobody talking about him? But you, of course, are on top of it. That's why everyone should be listening to Up Next. Yes, I am impressed. And I'm like, Cal, kind of weird, school. But again, a place that probably that depth chart is wide open. I wouldn't be surprised if he has 7 to 10 touchdowns next year as a true freshman. All of a sudden, everyone's talking about him. So, yeah, if you're in a C2C startup, circle that name late. You can get him like, I don't know, 20 plus rounds. I think he's just, not on really many people's radars at all, but I was impressed. Another one of those guys. The thing is, if you watch all the film, certain guys just stand out, and a lot of guys look good, but certain guys just stand out. And I think he's one of them. So we like that. And then as my homer pick, I'll just mention Marcus Burke for going to Florida. And check out his film. I want to like the Florida guys, even though we don't recruit very strong. Dan Mullen doesn't put a lot of effort into it, unfortunately. But Marcus Burke is another one of these tall, lanky guys, 6'4". I would say he's not sudden. I would say he's not. I wasn't impressed with his yak ability. So, like, if he gets the ball in his hands, it's kind of where the play is going to end, maybe. If he's got a defender in front of him, but if he gets behind a defender, it's gone. I mean, he looks like he's got long speed, a lot of good over the shoulder, hands stretched out catches. So he's got a big long catch radius at 6'4". And can certainly be utilized as a deep threat on the outside. He gets past people, and like I said, he's not sudden, but if he gets moving, I think he's got that long speed. So like after those first 10 yards, I think he really starts to eat up ground. But yeah, not necessarily a dude who's going to wow you with route running or off the line impressiveness. But maybe he can develop some tactics there to get off press and things like that as it goes into his career. Certainly some building blocks there. I think the speed is there, the long speed, and I'm hopeful. I just wanted to mention him for my Gators. Let's see. And I think maybe you have an opinion here. Devy Dietz Austin tweeted at me that he's going to riot if we don't talk about Lonnie White Jr. So we're contractually obligated to mention him. I watched the tape. He played a lot of quarterback, so I don't know what to think of him as a wide receiver. Maybe you've seen something different. I saw literally, I think, like 2 catches. So I don't know what to say about him. He's going to Penn State. What do you think?
I love his size. He's 6'2", 210, and he's basically a running back that can line up at wide receiver. As a runner, he's elusive, powerful, speedy. He's going to be a yak monster. That's one thing that you can count on. And I don't really know how he's going to develop into a wide receiver, but I'm sure he can be coached up because he's an athlete, and with the ball, he's a beast.
Yeah, that's fair. I definitely saw his running ability. I mean, tons of option runs and quarterback draws and things like that. So let's get into some tight ends. Tight end's such a tough position. I think it's tough to scout. I think it is. And in high school, I mean, these guys are usually receivers that are too slow, so they convert them. Some of them have blocking ability. I have to say, I don't really know. I mean, I don't know what to do with tight ends. So that's why I'm glad I have a guy who's got some real opinions. I'm going to basically give you the floor for tight ends. So take it away.
Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about 2 guys here. My first one is Jake Briningstool. He's 247's #1 tight end, and I think he's the top tight end in the class, and it's not close. He's 6'5", 215, and he's smooth as butter for that size. He has a knack for finding the open spots in defenses, and that's something I look for out of a tight end rather than route running. It's just whether they can find those holes and really own those holes in the defense. What really sets Briningstool apart for me is the heart that he plays with. He's light for a tight end, but he crushes people blocking. He's super aggressive, and his confidence is through the roof. His hand strength is awesome. I think Clemson will utilize the tight end more than they usually do with Briningstool there. Another guy I'll be talking about is Louis Hansen. I might be biased on this guy because he played his high school ball just down the road from me, but Louis Hansen, he's a super deep tight end that I'm high on. If nothing else, his play strength is elite. 247 has him as their 28th tight end, while Rivals has him at #5. So I'm not sure what to take away from that, but it is interesting what a difference there is there. Hansen uses his strength in the blocking game first and foremost, which will get him on the field early at Michigan, who likes to use their tight end, and he uses his strength on those 50-50 balls as well. This kid has a high-end pair of hands, and he can just rip the ball out of defenders' hands. Hansen's going to score a lot of touchdowns year 1 because those hands will be utilized as a blocker, obviously, in goal line sets, and he does have those hands. So I think on those play action passes, he's going to end up in the end zone quite a bit, and that'll catch Harbaugh's attention, and I think it's wheels up for him in 2022.
All right, there you go. It's a nice deep. Well, it depends on what site you're at, I guess. If you're a 247 guy, that's a deep cut. Sounds like Rivals is higher on him. And I agree. I mean, Michigan's a place where you kind of think about tight ends a little bit more. So really nice pull there. I want to mention a couple guys. I did some pre-show just film watching this morning. One thing I like to look at is athletes that might be going and playing tight end at the next level. And if you have any opinions, feel free to share. I didn't even put these guys on the list until today. So if you're not, if you don't have an opinion, that's totally fine. But one guy who was interesting to me is looks like it's Shimon Mateer. He's going to Cincinnati. He's from Miami. He's like 6'5", 220, I think, coming in. Played a lot of wide receiver in high school, split out wide, tons of those types of things. He played a little bit of actual tight end. I saw some body catches, but I also saw him flash just monster hands. He looks very long. He's 6'5", but he looks just these huge, long hands. I mean, catching balls way up over everybody. And again, because he played a lot of wide receiver, pretty fluid for 6'5", 220, I thought. And if you say, well, he's a tight end, he's really fluid for a tight end. So have you looked at him at all? I was pretty impressed. He's going to Cincinnati. Who knows what the depth chart looks like there. I kind of like Josh, I think it's Wiley or whatever for Cincinnati. He's their current tight end. Any thoughts on Mateer?
I have not looked at him, but I do feel like I've heard someone talking about him on a podcast. It could have been on the Campus to Canton podcast with Austin and Colin.
Yeah, could be. There's only a handful of us doing a lot of this talking about these guys. It's probably like 6 different podcasts. You could name one, but yeah, I was impressed. I only looked one time this morning. I was just I was like, it might be fun to talk about these athletes who could play tight end at the next level. I'll mention Trinity Bell because some of you might look at him and say, "Ooh, 6'7", 260 pounds." But nah, he's lumbering. I mean, this guy to me has almost no athletic ability outside the fact he was 6'7" in high school. And they used him as a 6'7", power forward in the end zone. 0 after the catch, 0 athleticism to me. So just pass him when you're looking down, trying to find a gem. And then Sean Munnerlin going to Rutgers. He's 6'5", 205 pounds. So he's going to need to put on a ton of weight. But I thought he's going to Rutgers, so who knows what the opportunities there are going to be pretty soon. And I again, kind of like that. Kind of like Mateer, I saw fluidity, which I would hope at 6'5", 205 you have some fluidity, but pretty athletic, pretty good hands, similar to Mateer, and Mateer has 20 pounds on him coming in. So I really like Mateer as maybe a guy who's a gem waiting around in Cincinnati, and this guy going to Rutgers, Munnerlin, is interesting, but he's got a long way to go for weight gain and all that kind of stuff. So those are some guys maybe to circle super deep, see if anything happens with them at their various schools. But, these athletes that turn into tight ends, always intriguing. I'm a big fan of looking down the athlete list, and I feel like people overlook that because nobody really knows what position they're going to play. But all it takes is a couple of Google searches, and you can find out what position they're going to look to play at the next level. Anything else you'd like to plug, Boz? I mean, we've said the Up Next Devy podcast. Definitely everyone should check that out. Anything else you got going on?
Actually, I had a couple of deep wide receivers that I'd like to talk about.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we skipped that. Okay, go for it. Yeah, absolutely.
So one guy is Keon Coleman. He's a Michigan State commit, and I know analytics are pretty hard to use for these incoming prospects, but this guy's an analytics monster, and it's no surprise that Nate Bork was the one who brought him to my attention. He's an analytics god, and he's 6'4", 200, and he averages 32.6 yards per reception, and 63% of the time he touches the ball, he scores a touchdown. He plans on playing basketball in college as well as football, and for Michigan State, that's really impressive. For his size, he has no business being as smooth as he is. When watching film, I would have guessed he was 6 foot, but he's 6'4".
That is a nice deep cut. Yeah, he's a 3-star composite dude, way down the list. Very cool. I'm gonna have to check him out. Yeah, 6'4", 200 and smooth. That's all I need to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I hadn't looked into him before I watched film, and I really thought he was a 6 foot receiver. Like, he was smooth. The other guy I want to talk about is Marcus Allen, and he's committed to Wisconsin, and Wisconsin's wide receiver with the most production last year had 255 yards. So they clearly need to add a weapon. I truly think that Marcus Allen is the best receiver on the team already. He's 6'2", 190, and he's a jump ball beast. He has strong hands, plays physical, and he reportedly runs a 4.5 40, which I like to see. He's a guy who can instantly put up great numbers with Graham Mertz throwing him the ball, and someone that I'm going to be targeting late in campus to Canton leagues.
Yes, I love. One of the things I like to do is search down in the 3-star range for guys going to teams where there's going to be opportunity, and then flip on the film and say, is there anything that makes me excited about this guy? So, actually, Marcus Allen, we all have only limited amounts of time. He was a guy who said, "Oh, I want to look at him going to Wisconsin because, like you said, anybody going to Wisconsin has a shot if they have any athletic ability whatsoever." I never got a chance to do it, so thank you for bringing him up. I'm going to definitely be checking him out. That is an exciting thing. They just need athletes. They need somebody to be some kind of threat, and that will help Graham Mertz. That will help Jake Ferguson. That will help Jalen Berger. You could shut down on the field, and basically play 10 in the box against them last year, I think, because they had nothing. When Quintus Cephas left, they just had nothing left. So, very nice pick there. Marcus Allen doesn't look like any relation to the Marcus Allen, but this was spelled with a K, Marcus Allen. So check him out, everybody. Anybody else for you?
That's all for my wide receivers right there.
Do you have another athlete, since we're talking wide receivers, have you, I looked at the film yesterday, this athlete, I think he's like the number 1 or number 2 athlete on 247. Shoot, let me get him up real quick. I just want to know. He's from Texas. He's going to Oklahoma.
Sanders? No,
it's
I think he's more of a tight end
athlete. Hold on, let me pull
more
this
of a
up.
DN tight end.
His name starts with a B. Billy Bowman. Have you looked at him at all?
I actually have not. No.
So I don't know what he's going to play. It seems like there's no real smoke as to what side of the ball he's going to be on. I think. Basically the write-up at 247 says just electric no matter where he is. I would agree. He looks awesome. Check out the film. So fast, sudden, 5'10", 175. I think he could play corner, maybe free safety, maybe wide receiver, obviously for fantasy wide receiver. If you're in an IDP C2C, so you're like that level of degenerate, I think Bowman would be a guy you definitely want because I really think he looks special either wherever he lands. But if he's a wide receiver, I guess you might have to wait a little bit. We already talked about Marcus. I think it's Marcus Williams. They have, Marvin Mims is stud. Hazelwood we like. So he's maybe 4th or 5th. But, in year 2, he could pop if he plays receiver. And he just looks like the best athlete on the field easily. And that's what you want. You want guys who just are transcendent on the high school field. And I think that's definitely what he looks like. So check him out too. As a grab bag, he may not play receiver, but certainly worth looking at.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing for Jatavian Sanders. He's a guy that could play tight end or D end. It's looking a bit more likely that he's going to play D end, but if he plays tight end, he's the 13th overall prospect.
That's right. Yes. And he's a 5-star athlete going to Texas. I saw an article, Sark is, I guess, on record already saying he's going to play in both spots. So I don't know what that means. That seems like a recipe for disaster. Just pick one. If it was NCAA, if it was the new NCAA football video game, I would probably put him at D end because I'm sure those stud athletes always are like 99s as true freshmen if you put him at D end. But anyway, that's another topic for another day. But yeah, good call on him. I don't know what he's going to play. The 247 comp is Jonnu Smith, so that's pretty exciting. Super athletic tight end is always worth looking at. So, all right, Boz. Well, this has been super fun. I appreciate your in-depth knowledge. I appreciate you grinding these high school kids. There's so many people putting out rookie stuff right now, but we're putting out true freshman stuff. So that's exciting. I like to be ahead of the curve. I'll let you do anything else you want to plug, and we'll sign off.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait for the next episode. I really love what you're doing with this podcast. And I definitely got to get myself into some college football DFS stuff.
Oh yeah. All right. Next year we're doing it, man. I would definitely want to bring college DFS to the mainstream. Mm-hmm. Thank you for those kind words. Appreciate you being on, and we will see you guys next time on Why Wait Till Sunday.